Hey, I'm Arlie Montalvo, president of the Riverside-San Bernardino chapter of the California Native Plant Society. And I'd just like to welcome all of you today. We have a full room today of people in person, and I believe we have at least 30 people online. This is great for the first meeting of the season. So we go dark in the summer, so we didn't have any meetings in July and August. We just had some event things that went on. So I'm just going to remind everybody of the mission of the California Native Plant Society. And that mission is to protect California's native plants and their natural habitats today and into the future through science, education, stewarding, gardening, and advocacy. And the California Native Plant Society has a very strong and well thought out strategic plan that allows them to carry out a number of goals and different sorts of activities that helps us be successful in reaching those goals. And at another meeting, I'm hoping to have some time to go over what those are and what our strategies are, but because it's really important and it's really cool. But all of you can look at the strategic plan online on the California Native Plant Society website. I just wanted to make a few announcements, and I was going to go over a couple of things on our schedule that are coming up. We have a pretty deep schedule. The schedule that our board sees is just filled with stuff because we have lots of meetings, and committee meetings and stuff. But the first thing I want to mention is the California Native Plant Society's conference. This is held every 3 years, and it's very exciting that it's going to be in Riverside this year at the Riverside Convention Center, and that's February 5th through 7th. And there will be workshops and field trips on the days prior, a day prior to the conference activities that are actually in the convention center. And registrations will start opening up at the end of October for people to register for the conference. People have already applied to give posters and talks and to lead field trips, and that schedule is all being built as I'm speaking now by staff and volunteers. And we had a lot of really great submissions. There's a conference homepage, which is just conference.cnps.org. You can all go there and get more information about the conference. And if you're a CNPS member, you probably got a mailing about the conference, but it doesn't go out to non-members unless somehow you go onto the website, put in your information to receive email updates about what's going on with the conference. So I want to point out that our chapter contributed $2,000 towards a scholarship fund, which people can go into. There's going to be a way to apply through CNPS statewide to receive scholarships to help defray expenses of attending the conference, especially for people in need and people who are giving presentations and traveling. In addition, our chapter is also offering up to 4 scholarships for $500 each for people who live, work, or study within the northern San Jacinto Valley. And this is from a restricted fund, a donated fund that we received from the Friends of the Northern San Jacinto Valley before that organization closed down. This is before the death of Susan Nash, who was the president of that organization for many years. So we will be putting out information for people to apply for those scholarships. And so that will be coming out soon, hopefully on our MailChimp, Facebook and Instagram. We have a number, we've had some really cool things happening during the summer. We didn't have any specific field trips that we organized for everybody because we still don't have a field trip chair. Hopefully next year we will. So we'll have field trips in the spring and summer. But we did join in. CNPS statewide organized a 4-day veggie-thon in the San Bernardino Mountains that some of people from our chapter participated in. I was there for a couple of days helping out for the veggie-thon. And this was helping the vegetation ecologists do very targeted vegetation surveys in support of the mapping of California's vegetation types. So it was very detailed and it was a lot of fun. We got to meet people from other chapters and realms and staff, and there were staff members that are usually just at a desk at CNPS, like the IT guy who was on the veggie-thon. So it was really fun to meet some of these people face to face and work with them. We continued working on our habitat enhancement projects. We have the one at Bonaminio Park that's still ongoing, the native plant area and pollinator garden. We're going to be weaving a fence to replace the crookedy chicken wire, makeshift thing that we have along one edge that keeps all the sycamore leaves from entering and smothering our habitat from the planted non-native sycamores and native sycamore trees in the park. So we actually are going to be meeting out there with the Norco College California Naturalist class first Friday in October. And Leif Richardson is going to be helping us or instructing us on how to weave a fence using plant materials that we have collected. We're going to be collecting non-native shoots of eucalyptus for the uprights and killing a lot of eucalyptus saplings. We have permission to do that on some city property. And then also harvesting arrowweed and narrowleaf willow for weaving through those uprights. And so that should be a lot of fun. And if I think that we have enough material to continue past the 12:30 point where the class leads, we'll put out a notice in case anybody else wants to come and kind of help us out, because it would be a fun project. And then Charlie Harfouch has still been leading the sort of cleanup along the Santa Ana River. It's a woolly star habitat. We've been weeding, and the habitat is getting better and better all the time. And then we also, mostly Aaron Echols, conducted surveys of the plants that were coming up after the line fire area. And so mostly we go into the line fire area and we look for the unusual plants, the rare plants, to see how they're doing. We document horrible areas of invasive species, and we put all of this into a database where the Forest Service, U.S. Forest Service, can actually connect to it and see where we're finding these plants. There were a number of tabling events that our chapter attended during the summer, doing outreach for CNPS. And then there was a lot of work by Katie Barrows and others on how to protect the national monuments that were set up and signed at the end of the Biden administration. There are definitely some threats to public lands and the possibility of some national monuments being closed or removed, their status. And then we've been really busy planning the plant sales. So keep in mind that we have 2 native plant sales coming up. November 1st, it will be here, right in the space outside this building. And we'll be setting up on October 31st. I have a sign-in sheet for anybody who would like to volunteer for the setup and or during the plant sale. Okay, so there's a sign-up sheet and a little announcement about the plant sale looming on that table right near where you got your name badges. And then there's also going to be a plant sale in the desert, and it's going to be at a really cool place that Katie found. It's going to be during another event. I forgot the name of it right now, but it's going to be in Rancho Mirage. Katie Barrows is the lead on that plant sale, and she will be organizing volunteers for that plant sale. So soon there will be some flyers out for people who would like to participate in helping us with those really major fundraising events. So those are our only fundraising events, and that's what we use to support our programs and scholarships. Okay, and then this is the last part. We have some programs coming up. We haven't been able to announce them on the website yet because CNPS is having some problems with the website and we couldn't get our information on the website. So we apologize for that, but these are going out on MailChimp, the announcements. They are going out on Instagram and they are going out on Facebook. So hopefully within the next month or so, we'll get the website issue worked out. And so our information will be there too. But we have a program in October. So remember, our programs are almost always on the third Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. and they're normally here, but we're in a different room today than usual because the restrooms are being worked on the other conference room, which has larger seating capacity. But anyway, so we'll probably be back in that other conference room in October. And Brenda will be speaking on garden design basics, which will be really cool. And then we'll also be able to have posted lists of what's going to be available at our plant sales, and we can have some discussion about those plants as well. November 15th, Nick Bart from UC Riverside is going to talk about geology, the bedrock of California's biodiversity. This is a guy that does hang gliding and mountain climbing and all kinds of cool stuff. And so I think you'll really enjoy that presentation. And then December 20th, our annual potluck and slideshow, where you can submit your favorite pictures, slides, and we'll show them. And, maybe a leftover plant sale. And now I'm going to introduce our speaker. Sorry for going on so long, but we haven't had a meeting for a long time. So Aaron Echols has been on our board for how many years now? He serves as our conservation chair. He has also served as a leadership chair before, or field trip chair before. He's led field trips. He does a lot of work on rare plants. And he also works for the Inland Empire RCD as a restoration ecologist. And he has many interests. He's also a certified botanist through California Native Plant Society, which is a really good thing. And he's going to give us a talk on the ecological importance of native plants and their unbreakable link to California biodiversity. And I'll let Aaron continue. Thanks.
And hopefully everything online is working. I just assume that it is. All right, we can get started here. Let me start my timer just because I tend to ramble and this could turn into a 3-hour thing and we'd have to call pizza in. So let's set a yes. Okay. I was told an hour, so we'll aim for an hour here with time for questions. So yeah, as Arlie mentioned, I'm Aaron Echols, the conservation chair with the chapter here, also a restoration ecologist. I've been working with Inland Empire Resource Conservation District for 11 plus years now, primarily doing restoration projects and invasive plant removal projects, general conservation projects. And yeah, I guess, Arlie, we can talk about this later, but I figure I'll just address it now. If you need a arundo for that material to weave through your fences, we're doing an arundo eradication project. And we just have trailers of this stuff, and it might be a cool, yeah, you can split it in half and it's kind of bendy. So let me know. We built a bird blind out of the arundo at the Lewis Riverdo Nature Center, just on the other side of the river. Tossing it out there. Might as well have that invasive plant material go to good use. That too, yeah. So yes, we're going to talk about the ecological importance of native plants. And obviously there's ecological importance in wild spaces and natural habitats, but Today, primarily, I want to talk about the ecological importance potentially in your backyard or in more of an urban setting. And let me also just say, if people have questions, I don't have much prepared here. I'm kind of a winger. So feel free to interrupt me, ask the question right then and there. It's possible that I misspoke. It's possible that I introduced more confusion than I should have. So just ask me the question. I'll try and repeat it for the folks online because they're not going to be able to hear you. And then let's just answer it in real time. And maybe if we go, it might just lead to a 10-minute sidebar, and maybe that'll be interesting. I'm not a very formal presenter, that's just to say. And final thing, actually, this is a bit of a spoiler. Yeah, let's actually hold. I was looking at this picture of a monarch butterfly, and we have seeds to give away. It's what I was going to say. If anybody wants some seeds of an undetermined at this point particular plant species. So I've got a photo of a monarch here. The monarch butterfly is just going to be our case study for today as we talk about the ecological importance of native plants. And first off, I just want to set the table a little bit. If you're not aware, and perhaps you're not, maybe you should be, we are in one of the only 2 biological diversity hotspots in the continental United States here in California. And we're one of 25 of the originally designated biological hotspots. And if you don't know what a biological hotspot is, we're not going to go into it, but maybe raise your hand or ask your neighbor. But it just means that there's a very substantial, important, rich biodiversity over a particular geographic area. And why are we in a biological diversity hotspot? What makes California so special? This could be a presentation on its own, and I think actually there has been presentations on this, but it's a number of reasons. If you're not aware, we have some of the highest plant diversity in the continental United States. We have approximately 6,500 native taxa, and just for a little bit of context, not North America, but the United States has about 18,000. So we have over a third of the plant taxa just in California and all of North America. And more than half of those are endemic. So they only exist just in California. And again, this is its own presentation. But the reason for that is that we've just got incredibly diverse topographic complexity, geological complexity, geographic complexity. We've got influences from the desert. We've got the Sierra Nevada mountain range. We've got the coast. We've got the transverse range that runs that runs east-west. We've got north-south ranges. Just right here, excuse me, I've got a cough drop in my mouth also. I've got a little bit of a cough here. But just in the San Bernardino Mountains right here, we have one of the very few east-west running major canyons in Mill Creek. It's right where the San Andreas Fault actually runs through. And so Mill Creek just on its own in the Ukaipa Ridge is just kind of it's a microcosm of its own of biological diversity within the San Bernardino Mountains, which is already a hotspot within a hotspot within a hotspot. And if you are not, I don't know who's attending this meeting, but if you don't know what a native plant is, I think it's important to just make sure that we're all on the same page. It's a plant, and all plants are native to somewhere, right? Even plants that we in California identify as bad or invasive, we have all these names for them. They're native and they're very useful and beneficial in other parts of the world. So a native plant species is just a plant that occurs over a specific geographic area and has evolved in that geographic area over time. For example, this Phacelia minor here, you can see the range map. It's a Southern California endemic primarily. Looks like I didn't realize this until just now, but a couple of points in Baja. I don't know if those are correct or not, but a pretty narrow range for that particular plant. So back to the monarch that we've shown at the beginning. The monarch butterfly, sorry, I'm trying to move. Give me a second to move this. I guess I can't do that. I've got my window anyway, it's an online thing, but it's kind of in the way here. Let's see, can I move? Oh, okay, I got it.
Hide floating media controls from that bar.
I got it out of the way there, thank you. Pardon that, technical difficulties. So the monarch butterfly is going to be our case study for today. And if you're not familiar with the monarch butterfly, it's a migratory butterfly. Not all butterflies are migratory, but the monarch is. And there's two, this again could probably be its own presentation, not from me, because I don't really know that much about butterflies, but from somebody else who does. There's two major populations of monarchs, and they both migrate to different areas. So you've got kind of the eastern United States population monarch butterflies, and they migrate primarily down to Mexico. And then California's got its own population. Sometimes it's referred to as the western monarch. And this is the population that you see overwintering in Santa Cruz and San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, San Diego. I think there's a population in Huntington Beach and some eucalyptus there. So they overwinter on the California coast, as you can see on this map. And that's from about November to February, primarily the winter. And that's when, if you want to go see the big clustering, beautiful displays of monarchs on the coast, that's when you travel. You do your, November trip or your December trip out to the coast. And once they're done overwintering at those sites, they move inland to do their reproduction and to spend the summer. And if you're not aware, monarch populations have been drastically declining over the past 20 years. And you can see the last survey data on this chart is 2019, and there was about 30,000 monarchs. Unfortunately, in 2025, that number dropped another third. So less than 10,000 actually counted. And they do these surveys on the overwintering populations. And it's kind of even worse because as time has happened, there's actually more people doing surveys and there's more survey sites. So they're looking more, finding less. So why are monarchs in decline? Why are other species of butterfly in decline? Well, it's because we're taking areas like this. This is the poppy display of 2017 in the Lake Elsinore area. We're taking areas like this and we're turning them into this. And furthermore, when we turn them into that, we do this. And we just put up a house, put up some concrete, put up a nice green lawn consisting of some foreign sod grass. And then in the areas where we do have landscaping, we do this. And I don't expect that everybody know all the different plant species that are in this photo, but this is your generic palette of landscaped species, not native to California, probably native to somewhere in Europe or Eurasia or some other place on the continent. And they're brought here as a part of the horticultural trade, and they're incorporated into landscape design that most cities, most counties use. So kind of a problem. Excuse me. Okay. Well, what's left of our natural spaces, especially in Riverside County, especially in Southern California, a lot of that land looks like this. And this is primarily degraded land. It's either been overgrazed or impacted in some other way, and consists of just a few very aggressive, invasive, non-native introduced plants, non-native grasses, the bromus, the hordeums, the avenas, London rocket, it's this species here that's just this dead zone, this gray stuff. And then short pod mustard has taken over much of the landscape. So, and actually, well, okay, yeah, I'm not gonna bother with the notes. So back to the monarch. In those areas that we just looked at, the house with the lawn, the natural spaces, the artificially landscaped areas, none of those areas had native plant species, and you could potentially say that the reason that the monarch butterfly has declined such that it has is because it doesn't have any food. That's just a simple way to look at it. And monarchs, this is where we're going to start to talk about specialization. I'm sure everybody in this room knows, but monarch butterflies have a specialized relationship with this genus of plant, and that genus is Asclepias. Apparently, they'll use Finastrum or other very closely related plants, but for the most part, they just need milkweed. They lay their eggs on milkweed. Those eggs hatch into caterpillars, and then the caterpillars who have evolved. Well, the monarchs have evolved, but the caterpillars are the part of the process that eats the plant. These species have co-evolved with each other for many thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, and develop this very tight-knit relationship. So monarch caterpillars can't eat any other plant species aside from milkweed. That's it. If they lay their eggs on something else, the caterpillars will hatch, probably go looking for milkweed or try and sample the plant that they've been laid on, but they won't be able to consume it. They won't be able to gain energy from it, and they'll wither and die. So without milkweed, you don't have monarch caterpillars, and without monarch caterpillars, you don't have monarch butterflies. So a problem. And this story of specialization isn't unique to monarch butterflies. It's not unique to monarch caterpillars. It's not even unique to butterflies. It's actually pretty common in just about all of the phytophagous plant-eating insects. So another example, we're not going to go through a ton of these, but we are going to go through quite a few. Another example is the California dogface. Does anybody know this butterfly? It's our state insect, our state butterfly. Yeah, if you didn't, there's actually a stamp of it at one point in time. I don't know if our ethics have changed, but I'd like to see that come back. I'd like to see the dogface stamp come back. But this species exclusively hosts, its caterpillars exclusively eat a plant called Amorpha, or false indigo is the common name for it. And so without that plant, you don't have the dogface butterfly, which is gorgeous. Question, yes.
What regions count these native to?
Excellent segue. I'll give you the $5 after we're done here. The question was, for those online, the question was, what is the native range of the dogface butterfly? And I just happen to have that. So here you can see, this is the range of the dogface butterfly. You can see it's entirely endemic to California. It doesn't exist anywhere else. And then you can see its host plant. Well, one of two, Amorpha californica. And you can see that they mirror each other perfectly. So again, without that plant host, you don't have that butterfly. Same thing is true with this California sister. Without oaks, primarily coast live oak and canyon live oak, you don't have the California sister. Another nearly, I mean, this butterfly just mirrors the California floristic province perfectly if you look at that range map. Same thing here. If you don't have junipers, or sometimes these guys use cedars, you don't have this gorgeous juniper hair streak. And I should mention, yeah, all these butterflies are California butterflies that you can see here. I mean, I was going to say right now, but obviously not. But in this area at some point during the year, or in the San Bernardino Mountains, or in some of the local mountains and foothills. Question, yes.
This photos are
These are all my photos. Yeah. I'm a fan of using my own photos. I have one that I didn't take. So if you don't have junipers, you don't have the hair streak. If you don't have plants in the mallow family, the Malvaceae, you don't have this skipper, and actually a number of other skippers. If you don't have plants in the spinach family, you don't have the western pygmy blue butterfly. These guys are, this is North America's smallest butterfly, actually. If you haven't seen these, they're gorgeous. They're about the size of a dime. I overlooked these for about a year because I just thought they were flies. They just look like flies when they're hovering on a plant. But it's actually just this gorgeous small little butterfly. And they're specialists on things in the Chenopodiaceae, so Atriplex. If people are familiar with that genus, that's one of their favorite plants. If you don't have things in the Fabaceae, and specifically things in these genera, you don't have the marine blue, which is another gorgeous butterfly. If you don't have, again, Acmispon, lotus, things in the pea family, you don't have the lotus hair streak. This you can't find unless you go to Catalina Island, but if you don't have, again, Acmispon, you don't have the Avalon scrub hair streak. This is a butterfly that's endemic to Catalina, so put that on your list of things to do, is go find this. If you don't have California buckwheat, you don't have Bear's meadowlark. If you don't have willows or cottonwoods in our area, you don't have the mourning cloak. And the story goes on and on. We could spend a lot of time just going over gorgeous butterfly photos and seeing what their host species are. There's books on this. I'm sure people have books. There's a Kaufman's Butterfly Guide that's excellent. And it's not just butterflies, but moths too. And this is one of my favorite groups of moths. These are the fairy moths. If you haven't seen these, they're quite something. They're very small, little tiny moths. They have these giant antennae on them, and when they fly, it looks like a little orb. They look like fairies. That's why they're called that. But it looks like there's an orb around the butterflies as they're flying because their antenna kind of hangs suspended in track with their bodies. And these are very exclusive hosts. So this Adela on the left here hosts primarily on small little castellae or plantains. The ocean spray fairy moth is obviously hosting exclusively on ocean spray, the plant ocean spray, not the thing ocean spray, not the liquid, not the fun stuff. And then this other fairy moth over here hosts exclusively on gilias and primarily, I think, Gilia capitata, which is the plant that it's on right there. And just another, again, I don't know how many of these we have. This could be all day. We'll have to see. But yet again, another just a gorgeous moth that has an exclusive relationship, an exclusive specialist relationship with a plant. So if you want to see this guy, sometimes these are called lichen moths because they look like a lichen. They primarily or exclusively use oaks, and I think this guy likes scrub oak. So let's take, yes, question.
Yeah, one more question. With the moths, is light pollution causing problems for the native moths in California?
I owe you another $5.
Okay.
The question was, is light pollution causing a problem for moths in California? And can I just say we'll get there? Yeah, I've got we've got some recommendations, and one of them being about light pollution. So quick pause here for a pretty photo. And yet again, this is a tortoiseshell, California tortoiseshell migration happening across the Sierra Nevada. And yet again, just another species. Does anybody know actually what their host species is? These guys host exclusively on cenotes. And I was told not to bring my soapbox today, or lilacs. Oh, is it? Oh, the soapbox is allowed. So well, I'll try not to. I'll try to keep it under the desk. But yeah, these host exclusively on ceanothus. So some of the work that CAL FIRE, for example, might be doing, where they go through and they do this ladder fuel removal, where they're removing ceanothus, by the dozens of acres. Potentially when they're doing that work, they're just cutting down the plants that have these caterpillars on them. Those caterpillars don't make it to maturity, and so you don't get these awesome migrations. I was up here on the Sierra Crest, and there were millions of these things. It was just a constant stream, just all day long, just streaming north to south, migrating. And I guess we have more to go through. Sorry, but it's not just butterflies and moths that are specialists. We have 1,600 species of native bees in California, and that's a pretty good chunk of actually the total in North America. And it's estimated that up to 60% of native bee species might be pollen specialists. And then just for those who aren't aware, I feel like this is maybe necessary. When I'm talking about bees, I'm not talking about honeybees. I'm not talking about European honeybees. That's one of 1,600 bees that you can find in California. These are primarily ground nesting solitary bees. I think there's one wasp in here, so apologies if anybody's not. Don't point it out. And more bees. Just so a couple, we're not going to do an exhaustive list here, but just a couple of different genera here. The Perdita, these are fairy bees. Some of the smallest bees, actually, the smallest bee in the world, I think, is a Perdita. It uses this tiny little euphorbia. I've never gotten a photo of that. I've never even seen it. It's on the list. But these fairy bees have pretty close associations with their pollen specialists. So there's a Calicortis specialist here. And then the Roos fairy bee is using sugarbush, lemonade berry. They'll use some toyon. They'll use laurel sumac. So they use a few different genera, but those are all really closely related genera.
Can I ask you about stinging and the native bees?
The question was, can you ask me about stinging in the native bees?
Yeah.
The answer is no. Because I don't know very much about it. That's why.
Females can sting.
Well, I think only the females of any bee, right, can sting. Because the stinger is just a modified ovipositor, and so yeah, only the females have it. I've never been stung by a native bee. I've been stung by honeybees plenty of times, but I've never been stung by a native bee. But they do have stingers, or I think they do. And I'm not a bee specialist. I'm a generalist. I'm an ecologist. Ecologists know nothing about anything, but like a little bit of something about a few things. That probably didn't make sense. So just another genera here, Diadasia. These guys are again exclusive pollen specialists. You've got Diadasia that prefer or can only collect or prefer to only collect cactus pollen, and then we've got this other Diadasia here. They like bindweed, and we found them by the thousands when we were doing El Dorado fire surveys, because the bindweed is a fire follower, and so when you get fires, you get thousands of these guys, and you can see they're they're solitary nesters. It's one bee per hole. Like occasionally they'll share depending on the genus, but for the most part, they're just each one of these holes is one bee going into it. But they nest in colonies. Some of them nest in colonies. Some of them are solitary, so they're just total lone wolves. But these Diadasia, they like to colony nest. Yes, are they probably a correction?
That's on the native ones. On the native.
The native Calisthesia, yeah.
Not the non-native weedy common vine that you find in the garden.
Sorry, yeah, I should not use. Well, we should use common names, but we also shouldn't use them. But yeah, I'm talking about Calisthesia, not convolvulus, which is, yeah, and they're up there. They're using fulcrata and macrosthesia. I don't think they differentiate. And it's actually not only insects, and it's not only butterflies, it's not only bees, but plants themselves can actually specialize on other plants. We have a whole range of parasitic plants in California. We have hemiparasites and parasites. I just threw this in here because this is exciting and wanted to share it with you. Yeah, so has anybody ever seen this in California? I already know you haven't, because this is recently found not very long ago, and it went out for DNA testing. And I don't have the full picture here. I just heard this from Ron Vanderhoff, the OC CNPS botanist. But this is a new species that it's new to California. It's not new to the world. It's known from New Mexico and Arizona, but it wasn't documented in California until I think Dick Zembal actually was the first to find it a few years ago. I had no idea what it was, and they collected it. I feel like I'm telling the story now. Anyway, they collected it. The collection was lost. Then they finally got the DNA analysis back, and turns out this is Ephaline riparium, and it exists. The only records of it right now are in the Prado Basin in Riverside County in California. It's always been there, just nobody ever saw it before. Right in the middle of one of the most densely populated areas on the planet, believe it or not. And this thing is it hosts exclusively on cocklebur, Xanthium strumarium, which is weird because that's an annual plant. So these are both annuals. This is an annual plant itself, and then the cocklebur is also annual. So it's weird. It's very weird to have this in a floodplain scenario, where the cocklebur is growing up in the sand in a floodplain, and this parasite is attached to it. And it's not just the bees, it's not just the leps, or when I say leps, I mean butterflies and moths. And it's not just the plants, but flies are also specialists. This is, I don't know if we ever figured this out, but this is potentially an undescribed species of flower-loving fly. We never really figured out what this was.
Can be what yeah, I think it was being described.
So this gorgeous fly clearly has a specialized relationship with the endangered Santa Ana River woolly star, which is the flower featured here. You can see its proboscis is just perfectly the right size to fit down that corolla tube and find the nectar in this flower species. And I'd wager that this fly probably doesn't use any other species. It just might have this very, very tight-knit relationship with this plant. And when I'm talking about flies, I know everybody's mind probably goes to the annoying house fly or the biting midge or something, but we actually really have some really gorgeous fly diversity in California, as you can see here, especially when you start to look at their eyes. Big fan of fly eyes, as you can tell. And sometimes you don't even see the fly. These are all fly species. You never see these, but you see evidence of them. Excuse me. So we've got, and again, these are very, very specialized relationships where there's a whole group of these gall producing midges, and I'm not going to go into their life history a whole ton, but they have a very close relationship with a particular plant species. In this case, it's an exclusive relationship, or it usually always is. This willow gall midge, for example, it will go up to an arroyo willow, and they don't even use other species of willow. They'll just use arroyo willow. You won't find this midge on Gooding's willow or sandbar willow or any other species of willow. It's just arroyo willow. And they'll lay their eggs on the willow. They do some chemical magic where they trick the plant into secreting this odd growth over their eggs to protect it. And then the larvae hatch and they eat the gall from the inside out. And there are dozens, if not hundreds, of these things in California. Almost every single native plant species we have, I'm finding, has its own associated gall. So we have the honeysuckle gall, we have the ceanothus gall, we have the willow gall. Again, if you go to different willow species, there's like a pinecone willow gall on sandbar willow. I was just out hiking yesterday and I found an Ericameria gall that was on Ericameria, scale broom gall. I mean, again, it's almost as if each plant has its own species of gall midge that uses it. And so again, the theme here is if you lose that plant, you also lose this species of fly. You potentially also lose a number of other things. I guess we're just going to keep going with the story here. This is another fly, and this species also has a specialized relationship with things in the sunflower family, specifically sunflowers and Enselias. And it likes to lay its eggs right into the developing flower, and then its larvae eat the flower buds as they're developing. You can see it laying its eggs just right in there, right at the perfect time. And then, has anybody ever seen this on your leaves? These are leaf mining flies. Again, so many. Once you get out there and you start looking at leaves, as I tend to do, you just spend time. People think you're on drugs or something, but you can do it. You just get up there and you just look for little patterns in the leaves and see what's visiting it. But a lot of plant species, a lot of native plant species in California have their own associated leaf mining fly, and there's moths that do this too. It's really difficult to actually tell when you see something like this whether it's a moth or a fly or something else. But again, those relationships are very, very specialized. So they're so specialized that sometimes you can identify the species of fly just based on the plant that it's on. And so why do you want flies? After all, right? I mean, they're pretty, they're cool. Of course, we want them. But one of the, I would argue, the greater benefits of having flies is that those flies and additionally, those caterpillars, those butterflies, all those insects are the foundation of most of our food webs. So this is a whole group of birds. They're called the flycatchers. I guess I have a couple of groups in there, but most of these birds are flycatchers. They don't only eat flies; they just eat insects. They're insectivores. But if you don't have the flies, and if you don't have the right flies, it's hard to support these bird populations. And again, if you don't have the right other species of insects. California gnatcatcher, for example, which is one of those birds that was on there, they need to consume about 30% of their body weight every single day. And that actually differs a little bit depending on whether it's a male or a female. And so that's 300 insects per day or 2,100 a week or over 100,000 a year. So you can imagine just to feed one California gnatcatcher, you need a lot of flies, you need a lot of insects for that bird to eat. And unfortunately, we don't have quite the number of flies and insects that we used to have. And as you can see here, it's the Rosenberg study. Bird populations have plummeted within the last 50 years and continue to plummet, unfortunately. It's actually a small exception here. The doves and like exclusive seed-eating birds haven't actually declined as much as the insectivorous birds, which tells you something. And so if you don't have the right kind of bird food, you don't have the right kind of birds. You can't support the birds that you would otherwise want to support. And not only are you not able to support the adult birds, but if you don't have these soft-bodied caterpillars, and this is where we might start to get into the Doug Tallamy stuff. I'm just a huge fan of Doug Tallamy, if people know him and his work. He spent a lot of time looking at butterflies and the importance of looking at caterpillars and the importance of caterpillars for birds and specifically for bird reproduction. But because these are, soft-bodied, juicy, delectable insects, this is the primary source of food that most birds are feeding their young in the nest when it's reproduction time. So again, going back to our little slice of heaven here, and then this stuff, there's not any. If we cycle back and forth here, I'm challenged to figure out where the caterpillars are in these two scenes.
On web work.
Fair enough. Yeah. There's a couple out there, and I do want to talk about. Well, maybe we won't talk about that. But a big component of the of having the right food source for the birds is seasonality, right? Birds need food at all times of year. And unfortunately, there are a few moths and there are a few caterpillars that use short pod mustard, for example, probably the most invasive plant in our area. The problem is that short pod mustard is really only supporting caterpillars during one time of year. It's not supporting caterpillars throughout the season. And so might be able to feed a bird for in the springtime, but it's not going to be able to feed a bird for the entire year. So clearly somebody whoever made this presentation was having too much fun with ChatGPT image generator. But what do we do? What do we do? The birds are in decline. The insects are in decline. And then this is where, if you don't know the name already, I feel like this is now going to turn into just a pitch for Doug Tallamy's work. And then also Sarah Jane, who just did a talk with OC-CNPS like 2 nights ago. But these are on Audible. You can get the audiobook, or you can buy the book, maybe have the book. I don't know if we should have a rentable copy here. But I am just a huge fan of the work that Doug Tallamy does. And one of his ideas is turn your yard into a homegrown national park. And these are just a couple of his points that he's made. In the US, he notes that there are over 40 million acres of lawn. And just to put that into perspective, Yellowstone Park is about 2 million acres. And, so you can fit almost all of the national parks that we have in the United States into the lawn space, or the space that's been dedicated to lawns in the United States. And the idea here is if people, and he uses, I feel like I'm just turning into Doug Tallamy right now, but he doesn't even say you need to get rid of the full lawn. He says, what if you get rid of half? Just get rid of half of the lawns out there and dedicate that space to native plants. You can create the amount of biodiversity that's held in all of our national parks combined just on these private properties, or just in the, some of the landscaped areas adjacent to the track homes that we see going in here. So this is the idea. And this is a case study here. This is actually the development I showed in a previous slide, where they were putting the homes right into the middle of the poppy bloom. And so let's just take a look at this little slice of heaven right here. I wish I lived here. Yeah, I've never had to pay $100 for leaving my trash cans out for 30 minutes too long, but I would love to. So you could see, we're just going to cycle back and forth here. You can see this is all artificial landscaping that's been put in as a component of this mega development. And I don't know what these species are. I assume it's rosemary. I assume it's society garlic, which is that plant that I showed earlier with the. It's actually my arch nemesis. But it's just everywhere. It's absolutely useless, and it's a huge component of landscaping projects. Not to say that all ornamental plants are bad, but I challenge you to come up with an ornamental introduced plant that has the same ecological value as a high value native species. So say instead of bringing in a bunch of things from the horticultural trade that aren't native to this area, this is in Temescal Valley, kind of down there near Corona. Say instead of doing the artificial landscape with the horticultural species, say we dedicated all this space to the homegrown national park. We put in native plant species, high value native plant species. This is what it would look like. Once you cover it in green, you realize that this is a lot of space. I'm showing about a 25-acre area on this slide, and the green right here is 11 acres. And 11 acres is a lot. If you don't know what an acre is, it's about a football field without the end zone. So this is a lot of space that we could have available to support, because we're gonna, if you're not gonna go out there and stop the development, you at least maybe can work with it and make it work for California biodiversity. And so again, this is Doug Tallamy's 10 things you. This actually this is the way I'm phrasing it, but it says the 10 things that you can do. I'm saying the 10 things you should have done yesterday, and we'll go over these. Again, we could probably spend a lot of time going over each one in particular, but I just want to go over a few. And so his 10 are shrink the lawn, obviously. In California, that's not such a big ask. I think we're already shrinking the lawn. For context, Doug Tallamy's work he's primarily from the University of Delaware. His work is primarily in the eastern United States, where climate and plant life is a little bit different. And they have some big lawns out that way. We tend to have smaller lawns in California just because we don't have the rain. So shrink the lawn, or shrink the hardscape, or shrink the society garlic. Shrink, just shrink down the stuff that's not super productive in an ecological sense. Remove invasive species. Yes, of course. Plant keystone genera. And we'll go over the ones bolded here. We'll go over in detail. I feel like those are the three that I want to touch the most. Reduce your nighttime light pollution. There was a question about this. We can dive into it, but yes, lights are a problem, not just for moths, but for actually all insects. Anybody ever done spotlighting at night, or actually just gone outside and like hung out? I don't know who does this. Just hang out next to a bright light and see what flies by. Spotlighting is when you get a black light and you put it on a sheet and then you just see who comes and visits, but you get tons of beetles. You get, I get a lot of velvet wasp females that fly in. You get, you obviously get moths, but you get basically all insects. All insects, not just moths, have this same behavior where they're attracted to light. Question?
No, I was just gonna say that transition habitat that we sometimes do field trips, had one this last year. A moth night, and we. Like they had UV lights, they had different, sheets and different sets of kinds of lights, a bunch of experts.
That would be fun. We could do that here. For those online, the comment was Transition Habitat, who's a great, they're a nonprofit conservancy. They do a number of different field trips, and one of the field trips is a nighttime UV light insect field trip, which would be really fun. You can always join me over at the Louis Rubidoux Nature Center on any given Saturday. I may be spotlighting.
Come down.
That would be that. Yeah. Maybe he'll see me from the road. Just like, what's that black light over there? But yes, obviously light pollution is a problem. And I don't have a ton of slides on this, but just briefly, things you could do: switch from incandescent to LED, dim down the light, don't have such bright spotlights. I have these really dim lights, so they don't seem to attract anything. And also you can change the color of the light. So switching from white to yellow can help. Or even, I don't know if people have seen them, but you can get shields for your light so that when insects are flying, they're not seeing the light directly, but the light is shielded from the top and then the sides. So it's just pointing maybe down on the ground where you need it. Or, you don't need to have the lights on all the time. You can just get a motion sensor light if you're afraid of the boogeyman, right? Yes.
If you switch your lights that are just outside your front door to a yellow light, it not only doesn't attract the animals and then burn them up and stuff like that. But they don't come in your house. So it's double duty.
So a very good point. Yeah, and that includes mosquitoes. So yeah, it's not just for the benefit of the insects, but you don't have a bunch of insects flying around your home because they're getting in. Orchid, yeah.
Which is, Travis Longcourse did a presentation on this whole keep it dark at night. And he said campfire color lights are pretty much it. So seeing as how Halloween is coming up, last Halloween I just bought some orange Halloween lights, and that's my exterior patio light. So you too could buy some cheap on sale Halloween lights.
So the recommendation is on sale, not now, but after Halloween. Go get them for 75% off. Yeah, on sale Halloween lights that are similar in color to campfire, the color of a campfire, which would be kind of warmer yellows, oranges, reds. There's a neighborhood by me in Harupa that has these like weird blue purple lights. I don't know what it is, but that's a nice way to go also. Just anything aside from like the big giant bright spotlight. They just installed, I don't know how many lumens it is. It's like 10, I don't know, it's like 1,000,000 lumens. Not really, I'm exaggerating, but it's just this insanely bright thing because people keep stealing. I feel like, sorry, this is a side trail. But people keep stealing the AT&T copper wire from the street poles. And so the unfortunate byproduct of that is for then the school and the neighbors to put these like giant spotlights up, and they're not even motion sensor. They're just on all the time. But yes, reducing nighttime pollution is one of Doug Tallamy's top 10 things you can do. Create conservation hardscape. So bubblers is the big one. Just any kind of water source. It could be a pond, or even just having moist soil. If you just have like a dripping hose, that's actually, you get bees coming to that, you get butterflies coming to that. Just having moist soil can be useful for a variety of insects. Minimize spraying or fertilizing is one of these. Reduce mowing and removal of biomass during critical periods. So obviously don't go through in the middle of May and mow down your field, or, that's probably not the best time to be pruning your trees. That's probably not the best time to be disturbing things out in the wild, especially if you have wildlife out there. And I'll just add on here too. A lot of native bees will use herbaceous hollow material like Caniza. Like think about what's a good example? Sambucus, yeah, or like white sage flower stalks. They're hollow on the inside, and a lot of bees like those for their nesting. And I have a slide on bees, so we're not going to talk about it too much right now. But perhaps one of the things you do is, instead of going through and just cutting down all that, because we want to. The HOA is making you keep your yard look good. So you got to go down, you got to kind of maintain it a little bit. So maybe instead of cutting all that material off, the white sage stalks, instead of cutting all that off and throwing it in the green bin, you might just be throwing away dozens of bee eggs and bee pollen balls that have been placed in there. And then they go into the garbage, and that's unfortunate for the bees. So maybe instead of trimming that stuff off and throwing it in the trash, you can just like place it underneath the shrub or break it down. I try and hide. I have like little stash piles in my garden where I stash all my stuff, because I do want to prune off some of the dead material, but I don't necessarily want to remove that material, take it off site, because it can be useful for ground nesting bees and or bees that use herbaceous hollow stems, and they're in there. You can look for them. So yeah, just be conscious of removing biomass and the time of year that you do it. Create caterpillar pupation sites. This is, again, not one that we're going to talk about a lot, but a lot of moth species, so butterflies tend to create a chrysalis, and you can often find them hanging from an eave or from a shrub or something. That's how they do their metamorphosis. Moths make cocoons, and sometimes they'll do it out in the open, but more often than not, when they pop out of when the little larvae of a moth, the little caterpillar, pops out, of its egg, it likes to drop to the ground immediately and bury itself in the dirt. So just creating like a little bit of leaf litter, having a little bit of duff underneath your tree, not raking everything clean. That can be really useful for caterpillar pupation if you want to create more caterpillars to feed the birds. Create places for bee reproduction. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail. And then encourage and network with your neighbors, civic groups, and municipalities. And I'll stress municipalities. Yeah, if you, I mean, it never hurts to go to a city council meeting and just be the crazy environmentalist that's going off. I think, if we get enough of that in enough municipalities, I think that's how you really make a lot of the change, because a lot of time when you have these big, and we're in Riverside County, we're in, the Inland Empire, Southern California. We have these big mega tract home developments that come in, and they're not very friendly developments. It's not like they're just carving a little path through a wildland and putting a house. It's just total destruction of everything. It's, nuke the ground and then build the development up from from nothing. And a lot of times they have these like landscape slopes, they have parks, they have natural areas, but those areas aren't vegetated with native plants. And usually that's because the city, if it is a city or the county, they have a list of species that their builder can choose from. And so if their builder is, if it's like Society Garlic and Friends on the list, that's all that builder can use, because it's a policy that the city has. So perhaps I'm not telling anybody to, well, maybe I am. I know. Yeah. Grab your sign and head to City Hall, and have them change the specs on what should be planted, what can be planted. Or better yet, there was a state bill that was actually going to require, I don't know what happened to it. It was a couple of years ago. It was a state bill that was going to require municipalities to have a certain percentage. I forget, it was maybe 40%. So some percentage of the plants had to be locally native. Orchid, yes.
So, every city council or supervisors, they have public comment time to get 3 minutes. You can make a little 3 minutes drop this, bring your friend, go a coffee afterwards, or make your beverage.
Yeah.
Then you do it.
Orchid's comment, for those who didn't hear it, was every city council meeting, and I think most city councils meet every other week or monthly. It kind of depends on which one it is. Most meetings that I've been to are every other week. And at the very beginning of the meeting, before they do anything, so you could just go in, you don't have to spend a lot of time. You can just be the person that goes in and, does a 3-minute rant and then just takes off. But they have a dedicated time for public comment about anything. This is usually, where the lady's like complaining about how many cats are like on her lawn. That's usually who's doing these comments, but you could get in there and yeah, just take 3 minutes to inform the city that maybe they want to shift the direction in terms of their plant palette a little bit. Question? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just that planting is only well, I have seen publicly planted areas with California natives, but then they're maintained like traditional landscaping and the plants are dead within a year.
Yeah. So the comment was that even in the situation where native plants are being used, they're not being maintained properly.
One of our major campaigns that CNPS is initiating now is called Transforming the Built Environment. And so there will be a lot more information out on that. A lot of it has to do with all this. So
Nice. I'll make that comment to the online folks. So Harley's comment was that CNPS, as an organization, is going towards a transitioning the built environment. I don't have your exact words, but they're focusing more so on these landscaping areas and common use areas, public parks, and so on, and getting those spaces to incorporate native plants more.
we're doing it on a video card.
And they're doing it. Some municipalities are better than others. I went to Monterey recently, and they have a couple of big, these big mega box developments, these KB home style developments that are coming in, and they've got just this awesome native plant restoration style garden on the slopes. And I don't know So Monterey is doing something correct. And if Monterey's doing it, like we could certainly do it down here. Yeah. Okay, so like I said, we're just going to cover a couple of these, and I realize I'm short on time, so maybe we'll speed through. I guess, yeah, you can leave whenever you want. I mean, yeah. Sure. So on that list, and then again, this is Doug Tallamy's list. I'm just gonna. He's got a number of presentations on YouTube that are very, very good, very inspirational. I first heard him talk in person. He was at actually plugging the CNPS conference. I don't think is he going to be the keynote again this year or
Not still,
No.
but there will be something similar, I think. I forgot.
Anyway, hearing him speak in person and having him go through his slides, it was really, really memorable, really inspirational. So definitely just plugging again his online talks and his books. But yeah, one of the things he recommends is remove invasive species. And so if your yard looks like this, which hopefully it doesn't, it's just all short pod mustard. Again, one of the arch nemesises, one of the enemies. Maybe one of those. But yeah, so if you're going to remove invasive species, I recommend doing so and thinking like an ecologist. As I mentioned, my background's in restoration ecology, so I come at gardening from like maybe a slightly different angle. And my focus, and I had a nice native plant garden at my old house that I moved out of, and then they just took it all out, unfortunately. Spent like 8 years doing this really cool garden, and maybe some of it's still there. I don't know. But in restoration ecology, we are not really focused on the plants that we can physically see, like all that mustard in that photo. That's not really the issue. The issue is the seed bank. You want to focus on the seed bank. And if you can remove all of those, all the invasive species, all the unwanted species, you can remove those in such a way that you're keeping those plants from producing new seeds, then you're depleting the seed bank. And certain species, this takes like a little bit of background knowledge, but some species have a very short-lived seed bank. If you're trying to get rid of invasive annual grasses, for example, that can be done within just 2 years. It's kind of a 2-year system. Most of that seed will germinate or desiccate within 2 years. So if you've got a yard and it's covered in brome grass, just be persistent for 2 years, and then you don't need to worry about it ever again. You don't need to keep weeding for years and years and years and years. If you've got something like Russian thistle, maybe that's a 3-year program. That seed will germinate and desiccate within 3 years or slightly more. Short pod mustard, it's a little bit longer. But again, focusing on the seed bank will help you to do the work such that you're not on a treadmill and just doing the weeding year after year after year after year. And this does take a little bit of knowledge about the plant phenology, obviously, and being able to identify when a fruit. This is something I go over with our restoration teams. When can you just pull the plant out and throw it on the ground versus when do you have to bag it and remove it and throw it in the trash? And so I'm constantly, just all the time, if I don't know, if I'm not familiar with a particular plant, I will take the fruits and I'll open it up and I'll kind of see what the seed looks like, and I'll make a determination about whether or not that's mature or not. And you don't know immediately, but if you're comparing it with other instances where you've done the same thing and you kind of know what a mature seed looks like, you'll start to develop this skill where you can just point to a plant. You can say, oh, those are mature fruit pods. Oh, those are immature. We just pull that out, throw it on the ground. They're not going to develop. But a lot of times, if you have a green mature fruit and you just pull the plant out and throw it on the ground, that fruit will actually be able to fully ripen and harden, and then you're just throwing more seed on the ground. When I'm trying to remove invasive species, seed bank reduction is the ultimate goal. Obviously the plants themselves, but you do that through your program, and also minimizing soil disturbance and in certain areas, and then eliminating areas where wind distributed seeds can blow in. I don't know if people are familiar with stink net. This seems to be like the new bane of the Inland Empire. But that seed travels through wind. It's a really, really tiny seed, and it'll just show up in your yard. But if you have really nice non-disturbed soil, it makes it a little bit more difficult for that seed to actually establish in your yard. Stink net seeds are really, really small. If you have something a little bit bigger, like thistles thistles have quite a big seed and they have that pappus on top, the plume, so they travel with the wind. And if they land in your yard, if you have like nice stabilized soil, it'll just land on the surface of the soil. A dove will pick it up. It won't be able to make its way into the soil. But if you're like constantly tilling or kicking dirt around or disturbing the soil, that can you can have issues with wind distributed weed species. Question.
Yes. Seeds. Or can you put directly the seed into the green trash? Because I guess, is it going to be incinerated or something? So how do you properly?
That's a good question. The question was, how do you properly dispose of the seeds? Should you put them in a bag? Should you just throw them immediately in the trash? It depends on, I don't know where, if you're using the green waste, maybe that's going to a composting facility and maybe it would be not a good thing to be spreading stink net or some other invasive plant in that way. But my guess is those composting facilities already have all the invasives that are out there. And I don't know. I don't know that it would be spreading it or not. What I personally do is I throw everything in a trash bag and I tie the trash bag up and then I throw it in the trash. I don't throw it in the green waste. And most seeds, when you put it in a black trash bag and the plants are still green, what happens is there's moisture in there, especially in the summertime. There's moisture in there. And even if you have viable fruits, the sun will heat that bag up and it'll get so humid in there that everything will rot, including the seed. So I like to just rot that stuff. All right, presentation's over. Just kidding. We'll keep going here. You can leave, but that was my hour. But to answer the question directly, yeah, my personal take or personal method is to use a trash bag and tie it closed and let it sit in the sun for actually a few days and then put it in the trash just to kill all the seed. But sometimes I don't like to do that if there's little insects on it. So sometimes I'll leave the bag open for a few hours. This is like way too much, but sometimes you can leave the bags open for a little bit, let all the insects leave, if there's like ladybugs on there or other things, and then close it up tight, let it sit in the sun for a few days, let it solarize, and then I throw it in the trash. Yes, question or comment or criticism, critique.
What else? Pretty plan. And put that in the other thing is that anything in the sunflower family, like prickly lettuce or sow thistle, if it's blooming, it's gonna put out seeds. So if there's any flowers at all on, you need to make sure those things get in the trash.
Yeah. So for the online folks, the comment was you don't have to throw the whole plant away. You can just break off the seed parts. That'll save you trash bags. And then also be on the lookout for species that have viable seed by the time they're in flower, like things in the aster family. Tocolote and yellow star thistle is an infamous one. They have viable seeds before it is even in flower sometimes. If you have a bud, you can split those flowers open or those flower buds open. Then you look and there's fully mature seeds inside. All they need to do is harden up. And obviously that's a species that doesn't need to be pollinated. It just itself. And so while we're thinking like an ecologist, this is a restoration area that I've worked on. This is actually one photo. It looks like it's two different photos, but it's one photo. One area is showing the non-native grassland that was there, and then the other area is the restoration area. But the point of this slide is that sometimes you can just do the weeding. Sometimes you can just remove the invasives and you don't have to plant anything. So here we just removed the invasive species and we had helianthus come up, sunflower, California sunflower. We had heliotrope come in. We had this really cool atroplex species come in, that came in. That's the host species of the pygmy blue butterfly. We had some emery baccharis come in, and then we had milkweed float in too. So we did do a little bit of planting in this area, but most of the plants in our restoration were actually just in the seed bank. And when we removed all the grass thatch, they were released and they came up.
Yeah, that's how you remove.
On these large scale, I'll answer it and I'll receive any hate mail that comes my way after I do that. But when we're doing kind of more large scale restoration, especially at the RCD, and actually if I'll use the tools also, but we use an herbicide. We use a variety of different herbicides. there's about 10 different herbicides actually that I'll use. And some of them are grass specific herbicides. That's what we used in this situation. We had a lot of non-native grass, and there's actually an herbicide out there that only kills annual grasses. And you can use that over the top. That's how you preserve your native species. So I really like that particular herbicide. And we could talk more about herbicides, but that's how in that situation, we remove the grass. It's really hard to battle grass without that tool, because you can just line trim it over and over. There was hordeum grass there, and that stuff. I tried the line trim apply. I had to line trim it like 5 times. You just keep trimming off the flowers before they produce seed. And then I got to the point where the grasses just produced their seed basically on the ground, and my line trimmer couldn't even reach it. And so they were really hard to control unless you have a lot of free labor or volunteers or somebody that's out there hand pulling. And I will just say that, there's a difference between, like, the term pesticide is kind of like sports. Like, there's some really dangerous sports. And then there's also, then there's like, what's that one in the Olympics, the curling? There's that kind of sport. So that's just to say that, like, some of them can be really dangerous. Some are not that bad. Yeah. Yes, question.
So what's your position on using mulch on your native plants? And I ask the question because quite often when you're in an area where there's a lot of weeds and stuff that you want to get rid of, you have the seeds still in the soil. And you plant natives and then the seeds come back up again, the non-native plants. And so putting mulch down seems to suppress that somewhat. What's your thoughts?
So the question was about mulch, my thoughts on mulch. This is a hot topic, and differing opinions about mulch. I am not a big fan of large scale mulch, like mulching everything, and I'm absolutely I'm a lesser fan of like cardboard or weed liners and then mulch. But in the restoration context where I've seen mulch work and where I would use mulch is if I'm doing plant installation, if I'm putting in like a gallon plant, what you can do is just like mulch a foot around the plant. And that way you're not mulching everything. You're not, scorching the earth, so to speak, and keeping everything down. Because you do want some bare ground, actually. Like bare ground is, I'm gonna get on the bare ground soapbox in a second here. But I really, really like bare ground. But I think in certain scenarios, yeah, mulch can be good. But then there's always, like, this is the ecologist speaking, there's all these considerations. If you have Argentine ants at your restoration site, for example, or if you have Argentine ants adjacent to your restoration site, something that mulch does is it traps moisture, and that promotes and facilitates Argentine ant spread. And so if Argentine ants are a problem for you, in that they're competing with the native ant populations or that they're predating other insects that are valuable, then perhaps you don't want to mulch, and actually you're trying to manage for a much drier natural landscape. So it really depends. If you're in your backyard, you have Argentine ants. All of us have Argentine. Let me know if you don't have Argentine ants in your house or on your property. My money's on that you do, because there's just a mega colony across all of California, and actually probably all across the entire Western United States, if not, I don't know how far they're ranged. They're just across the continent. Yeah, that's kind of my take. There's other considerations to be made for mulch too. If you are mulching on a large scale, you don't get as much natural recruitment if you're in the restoration context. Like, I love when I put like a white sage. I just install one white sage, we water it, and it flowers. And then the next year I have, dozens of white sage all around it because I've been maintaining my bare ground. I love that. If you put mulch down on the ground, you might not have the natural recruitment. So the seed would just land on something that's too dry for it to germinate, or, a dove would come pick it up, or a bird would pick it up. So I know that not everybody is a professional botanist, and identification of plants is difficult. I'm sure there's this question: how do you know what is an invasive plant, what is not, what's a good plant, what's a bad plant? At this day and age, there's some tools that are really, really useful for determining what you have in your yard. So if you want to remove invasive plants, but you don't know how to identify them, like you're not that great with plant ID. It's just the plant is a plant. It's a green leaf. That's the pair of goggles that you're wearing. Strongly recommend iNaturalist. This is an app that you can get on your phone, and you can just take a picture of any plant or organism for that matter. It's not just plants. You can take a picture of a bird or a fly, so long as you can get a good photo. The AI, the artificial intelligence that the app has, is really, really good at getting you to that species. Or you can see here, it got me to the genus. This is actually Ambrosia convertiflora. So this, and there's other ambrosias out there that are difficult. Like this is not an easy plant to ID if you don't have iNaturalist, but the AI got it better than most botanists would. This could easily be misidentified as a like Pimelia or Silistachia or some other plant. So definitely just recommend using the AI in iNaturalist to identify your plant. And then you might as well just upload it to the web, because the other half of iNaturalist is you can upload this point. You can take the picture. I'm not going to go over all the intricacies of how iNaturalist works, but the 30-second version is you take a picture of a plant if it's a plant. You do the identification. If you don't know what it is, you can just type in plant. I don't know. I know it's a plant, or you can just say it's a state of life. And then somebody else will come along if you upload it, because you can hit the upload button, then it'll go onto the iNaturalist platform, the desktop platform, and it'll be available for all the other users. This is kind of like it's a platform where it's a citizen science platform where other people, if you upload observations, can see your observations. They can send you messages, they can comment on the observation, and you can tag people. So I'm on there. If you don't know what the plant is, you can say at Aaron Echols, what do you think? And then I can come along and say, oh, it's ambrosia, duh, yeah, get it straight. So the AI can be useful, or you can, there's a lot of really good botanists that are on that platform and can ID stuff for you. Sometimes you don't even need to ask them. There's some there's people on iNat who have over 500,000 identifications, which is insane. They've went through and they've identified that many plants, maybe 500. Is that an exaggeration? Definitely well over 100,000 identifications. I don't know if anybody's at 500,000 yet. It's like a race. It's kind of competitive. It's fun. I'm not much of an identifier, but people are on there and they can help you with that. So, and I would say iNaturalist is a good first step. So like say we don't know what we have, we know it's in the genus Ambrosia. Well, then you can go to, you can upload it on the desktop and there's more information. So this is what the desktop version looks like. If it's invasive or introduced, it's got a little pink exclamation mark. Is that red or pink? I guess it's pink. But it's got an exclamation mark, and then it tells you this species is introduced. And if you want some more information, you can then go to CalFlora. And if you haven't used CalFlora, it's a great site. You just go to calflora.com or .org. And type in you can just copy paste from iNaturalist, put it in, gives you a range map. It gives you this CalIPC is California Invasive Plant Council. They rank invasive plants or rate them by invasiveness. So this is a moderate level invasive, which means, yeah, you probably want to get it out. I mean, anything that's on the CalIPC list, you probably want to get rid of. But there's a whole bunch of information on CalFlora that can help you further. Moving on. Plant keystone genera. This is another one of those Doug Tallamy 10 things you should do. And yes, plant keystone genera. And if you don't know what keystone means, you think of the Roman arch. The keystone is the piece that holds the arch together. So when you lose that keystone, everything else falls apart. So oaks or willows in our area are kind of the really easy keystone species. They just support a large amount of the local wildlife. And without that oak tree, or without that oak woodland, or without that willow woodland, your whole natural community falls apart. But I would say, plant keystone genera, but also have a goal in mind with your planting. Like, you're like in this case, say you have some goldfinches that visit your property. Maybe your goal is to support the goldfinch. And obviously this requires like a little bit of background knowledge about the species. But like if I noticed there was a lot of goldfinches that I wanted to support, I might do what I've called here the goldfish sampler, where I have some fiddleneck that is food for the goldfinch in the spring. And then in the summer, they might switch to elderberries. In the fall, they love sunflowers. And in the winter, I might plant some toyon, some Christmas berries, so that they have berries to eat. And they don't just eat these species, but this is like if I was gonna design my yard for goldfinches, I might lean more heavily towards these plants versus just generic keystone species. If your goal is to support as much wildlife as possible, then yes, plant keystone species. But the goal is going to always be different. If your goal is to just provide absolutely zero wildlife value and stink up your yard in the neighborhood, then plant some society garlic. Aldo Leopold doesn't like that. So continuing on, just in our area, these are a few of the families and the species that you might want to consider. These are kind of those high value. I don't know if I guess you could call these keystones, but these are high value plant families in our area. So quercus, oaks, willows, buckwheat. I'm a very big buckwheat fan. Pea family are really useful for butterflies, as you saw. And of course, we need milkweed to help the monarchs. But don't forget the fun stuff. You know, I'll admit I've got kind of like a guilty pleasure for succulents, not even non-native succulents. So you could still have your fun stuff. And it doesn't, you know, even if they're not necessarily those ecologically productive species. And so a few resources that you can use if you want to tailor the plants that you put into your yard or your space. I know not all of us actually own yards, so you know, maybe it's the lot next to your house, maybe you know it's some property that you're you know, visit frequently. I don't know, but whatever space you have, here's a few resources to determine which plant species you might want to select given your goals. The first one, this is a Doug Tallamy special. It's called Native Plant Finder. So it's just nativeplantfinder.org. And it's a really intuitive site. You just go to it and you put in your location. That's the first thing you do. So you just put in your zip code, and then it gives you information. Excuse me. In this case, I've asked it to give me the most valuable plants for caterpillars in our area. And this did okay. I might actually, I might take issue with a couple of these, but for the most part, yeah, you know, lupin, artemisia, helianthus, and the pea family is down there. Lotus was a good one. So this is a resource. Enjoy that on your own time. And then Calscape is another fantastic resource. I'm sure many people have used Calscape. If you haven't, you could spend days just having a good time on there. It's a really great site that has been developed by the California Native Plant Society. And there's just, yeah, I think we actually do have presentations where it's just, here's how to use Calscape and here's what you can find on Calscape.
We might do that. If people want that, maybe we'll just have one of our sessions be Calscape and Calflora. Where people just bring their computers and
yeah, so
figure that out.
Maybe there's going to be a future presentation where it's just here's how you use some of these online tools to make your selection. But this is just an example of what Calscape can give you. And Calscape, they're continuously adding more fun things to the platform. So you can search by butterfly. You could say I want to support as many butterflies and caterpillars as possible in my area. And Calscape will tell you how to do that. And so this is the list for California buckwheat that is spit out. This is also from Calscape. They've got, you know, Feed the Butterflies bird buffet. So if you want to support birds, they've got that button. Or if you want to support butterflies, they've got that button. And this is just an example of what's, you know, I've typed in my area code here. So I just put in Riverside, and then I came to this page. I said, I want to know down here, I said caterpillars. I want to support caterpillars. And at the top, you can see this is number of butterflies supported. And so these aren't, you know, Calscape's not going to recommend, I could actually change the stuff here. I could say nursery availability. I can change all my attributes to take this. So a lot of these species, like arroyo willow, all these willow species, you're not necessarily going to be able to put these in your front yard. These are, you know, typically wetland obligate plants. So they need groundwater. They need to be near a stream of some kind. Yeah, you can just change all your different attributes in order to figure out what plants are most useful for your needs. But I didn't actually answer the question directly. I just gave you some resources. Here's my 3 species that I would recommend. So you're the laziest person, but you want to support wildlife, but you're not going to go, spend $300 at a native plant sale. Although, it goes to a good cause. Spend $1,000, why not? But it's like, say you just want to get like 3 plant species, you've got a small little space. Here's the 3 things that you should put in your yard, according to me. This is the opinion section of the presentation. California buckwheat. This plant is just an absolute stunner for pollinating insects. It blooms almost all year, especially if you have it on irrigation. It'll bloom nearly all year. It's always providing floral resources for species. At any given time, you can go out and there will be at least 20 wasps and like a bunch of native flies and 10 different bee species on the buckwheat. Just so many of our pollinating insects love buckwheat. And then also its foliage is useful for a number of caterpillars. So the Bernardino blue, which is a semi-rare butterfly in our area, the bear's metal mark, which I mentioned. There's a perdita, there's a fairy bee that exclusively uses buckwheat. So absolutely, this is a pretty common plant, but just an absolute stunner in the native plant context. And you can get, this is variety pullifolium, and it looks like a little bit prettier, I guess. A lot of people, we plant rosemary. This rosemary looks so much like buckwheat. I don't know why we don't just get rid of all the rosemary well, I know why, but maybe this when you go to the city council meeting, just this one little change, just take out the rosemary, put in California buckwheat, and I'll go home. Question back there, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the first one's not buckwheat, right?
No, sorry, that's yarrow. Yeah, it's just a butterfly. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have a good photo of Bernardino blue on a buckwheat.
You can get here in the garden, then you were. Yeah.
You can get buckwheat in the.
You can get a Bernardino blues on the buckwheat here.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Can you get buckwheat too here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you can get both. Yeah, buy a buckwheat today and
Well,
get a Bernardino blue tomorrow.
the pet sale would start in November, but you can see.
Oh, okay.
the result.
Cool. Are they there right now? Even?
Probably.
Oh, fun.
Got your camera.
I do. I have it in my bag. I always bring it.
All I'm saying, by the way,
Oh yeah.
2 really great resources for everybody that are on sale here. Little green building right next door are Flora of the Santa Ana River. If anybody wants to, this thing has everything. Thank you, Arlene, our chapter president, for being part of this one. Everything is in here. Every weed I find in my yard. If my naturalist tells me what they think it is, I can look it up in here. It is amazing. And then this one's a little more simple, a little bit smaller. Like my mom right here. Let's just find it. I like that. But it's got a lot of good planting ideas for planting in the inland empires. Let's start this title. The wildflowers and important native plants to be a little tighter. Anyways, these 2 are like my go-to resources for figuring out what plants I want to rip out my yard or which one I want to.
Nice. For those online, Jenny was promoting 2 really, really nice field guides. I should have put those in here. I was just thinking of online resources, but so just I got a couple more slides here. We'll try and get through them real fast. This is an example of what CalScape will give you. These are all the LEPs, the moths and butterflies supported by buckwheat. This is just the first page. There's many more pages after this. So absolute perfect plant. This is buckwheat growing up through a chain link fence. I didn't think you could use it as a hedgerow, but you can, apparently. Next plant that you should definitely get milkweed to support, obviously, the monarch butterflies. But this is also a stunner of a plant for insects, for pollinating insects. It flowers in the summer and it'll flower until late summer and fall. Some of them are still in flower now. And so those summer flowering species are actually really, really important for insects. And in our area, we actually have this is the main species in our area that's native is narrowleaf milkweed. That's what's featured here. And you can see on this map, this is from iNaturalist. This is where narrowleaf milkweed has been documented and uploaded into iNaturalist. So you can get an idea of the range here. Here's a zoom in of that map. And then here's a further zoom in. This is just, food for thought. Imagine if I don't know how many of these homes, I mean, there's got to be upwards of 1,000, if not more, homes here. Imagine if every one of these homes just had one milkweed plant. Imagine all the food for monarch butterflies that could be created. And this is in the Chino Basin, where historically it's hard to say because there's been so much disturbance in the Chino Basin. It was grazing and dairy farms started a long time ago. But if you look at the soils in that area, and if you kind of look at some of these intact reference sites, milkweed was probably very widespread in the Chino Basin. Again, just based on kind of a surface level understanding of the soils and some of the abiotic conditions that exist there. So yeah, historically there's probably just so much milkweed here, and it's a shame that there's now it's just I mean, it was dairy farms, and now it's becoming track housing. Yes, question back there.
Yes, is hairy milkweed, you wanna see that or no?
Yeah.
So like the yeah, like the more fuzzy milkweeds, like Ericarpa californica. Yeah. As far as I'm aware, any Asclepias they'll go for. Yeah, and then that includes that finastrum, that vining Asclepias, or excuse me, that vining milkweed. It's actually not Asclepias. Yeah, just the audacity of Chino to call this area the preserve. And then the third plant, coast live oak. This is a true keystone. This is, you can see the list again of moths that I pulled from Calscape on here. Moths and butterflies that use coast live oak. It's also, it's important to acorn weevils, scrub jays, acorn woodpeckers. There's so many things that use oaks. And again, historically in our area, there were probably a lot more coast live oak than there are today. I mean, there were clearly a lot more coast live oak than there were today. It's the dominant tree in our riparian areas. Okay, so just a little bit longer. Reproductive sites for bees. As I sort of alluded to, solitary bees, these are not honeybees. These are solitary bees. Most of these solitary bees that we have in our area, and there's a lot, like just across the river here. I've kind of been keeping track of all the different bee species, even though I can't identify them all, but I know which ones are different. I don't have the names for them, but I know, okay, yeah, this one looks a little bit different. I've got upwards of 30 different bee species just in this tiny little like 3-acre area that I've been surveying. So lots and lots of bee species in Southern California. And I've been told that Riverside County is actually a hotspot for bees within the hotspot. California is already a bee hotspot. We're a hotspot within a hotspot. And these bees primarily are using the ground to nest in, or they're using holes in wood, or they're using those herbaceous stems of plants. They're not making hives. They're not, that's the honeybee that does the hives. So things you can do to promote bees in your space. Leave some bare ground. Maybe you could just flag off like a little sandbox, 3 foot by 3 foot area where you just keep the ground bare. And that could be very useful for ground nesting bees. You can drill holes in old logs and make homes for, these are Megachilidae, the leafcutter bees and the mason bees. And something that you probably don't want to do is, like I was saying, cardboard. I see that I've actually seen this in restoration projects, and it's a shame because you just can't call that restoration. But in order to inhibit weeds in areas, they'll go in and they'll put down a bunch of cardboard boxes. I've seen one where they were using recycled pizza boxes, and I was having a good time in ChatGPT. So they laid down all these pizza boxes to keep the weeds suppressed, and then they put mulch on top of that. And bees, unfortunately, can't get through that. And so when you eliminate all the bare ground, you're eliminating nesting sites for bees. Yes, question.
I think that on the ground underneath my oak trees.
I actually have a fourth bonus tip, but I would do both. I would have some areas where it's just bare ground, and then I would have some areas where you have some leaf litter if you wanted to micromanage it. And then in some areas, it's like you get just like a little bit of grass thatch. It's sometimes useful for certain species. And you could get these bee hotels. This one's actually, you can't really tell, but if you could see all the little holes that have been plugged, that was a little mason bee that was coming in. So they collect pollen, and then they fly into the hole, they put the pollen ball down, they lay their egg on the pollen ball, then they seal up the cell, and then they do that again and again and again and again. And when they're done with the hole, they put a plug in it. And then after some time, the egg hatches, the larvae eat the pollen ball, which is very rich in protein and nutrients, and then they pupate, and then you got more bees. But you can make bee hotels. You could just drill. You don't have to do, the Marriott, Airbnb. It's a little easy if you ask me. But you don't have to do a giant structure like this. In fact, maybe these structures aren't even that great, because you don't really consolidate all the bees into one place, where there's so many bee parasites actually out there. Probably a whole nother talk. But many wasps, they actually look for these bee holes so that they can parasitize the eggs or the pollen, take advantage of that resource. But you could get these at like just anywhere for, I think, $5-10. And I just put this one on a post, and sure enough, the first year it was getting used by a mason bee and a leafcutter bee. And then this is my bonus tip list. Again, think like an ecologist if you want. Really, in your yard, the more you can make it resemble a natural wildland area, the more useful it's going to be for different things. So consider biotic structure, consider microtopography, there was a question about ground cover complexity. The most functional areas when you have a restoration site are, if I have a 1 acre site, I would probably want to have some area with some bare ground. I want to have some area with some denser leaf cover. I want to have some ground cover plants. I want to have biotic structure. So I want some taller trees. I want, snags for perching birds, and for, they can support cavities for cavity nesting birds. And I'm a big fan of debris piles. I like throwing all my sticks and stuff onto a pile and having that be available. These are just examples of forms that I use when I'm doing ecological assessments. And you might want to have one of these for your own yard. Maybe like downed log, large rock, bare ground patch of 3x3, or maintain leaf litter here. You could start, if you really wanted to, you could really start to micromanage your own little space and incorporate some of these different considerations. This is a form that's used for assessing wetland or riverine function of waterways. So debris, you get points for debris jams, cobbles and boulders, algal crust, point bars. You get points for all these. So you could develop a cool point system for yourself if you wanted to. Just give yourself points. It's a reason to pat yourself on the back, I guess.
We have a couple of questions about the bee hotels.
Perfect time. Questions.
Vertigo says, do we really need to clean the holes? I read that somewhere. And Claudia Rodusco says, what's the best location to place one? Spiders take over the hotel in her garden.
In turn, so the question, well, I guess I don't need to repeat the question to you. You heard it. Everybody hear the question?
Except right. Online, they wouldn't hear it.
Oh, I thought it was in the online chat, maybe.
Oh, it's online chat, so they could.
Okay, well, there was a question about, do you need to clean out the bee holes? I would just drill a new hole. Yeah, it's fast. I would just get my drill and drill a new hole, or put up a new bee box. I don't think you need to clean them out, unless you're really limited on hole space. Yeah, if you just have one little block, then maybe it's worth cleaning them out. And then about placement, I don't know where best to place a bee hotel.
Like north facing or something.
Yeah, there's maybe a thought about north facing.
Yeah, so just it's like.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one.
There might be stuff on that garden framing group's website about these hotels.
Yeah, if there's an expert online or in the room, maybe they can answer that. Question back there, and I have my own questions too, in case. I think we're done here, though. Yeah, I think we probably.
Mike? Really, for the bee hotel?
So, it's a good question. The question was, how wide should the hole be on a bee hotel? I do every size. I get a drill bit kit with all the different sizes from like a millimeter up, and I do all different size holes. There's a really tiny, there's a Ceratina. It's a tiny little wood mason carpenter bee. It's like they're called mini carpenter bees, and they're really, really small, and they like really, really tiny little holes. And then the leaf cutters kind of like they like a 1/4 inch size hole. But I make holes of all sizes. Yeah. You probably can stop once you get to like the width of your finger, or the circumference of your finger. Yeah. Yeah. There's the Xylocopa, the big carpenter bees that people aren't very much fans of when they're doing their thing in their house. But yeah, they like probably even bigger than your finger. I've never had them use any of the holes I've made though. I don't know where they're
Romney stems.
Romnia stems.
Had them, if you cut your Romney stems off, if you're in fire country, I leave them if you're not in fire country, and then just tie them up and hang them somewhere.
Interesting. Oh yeah. So if you want Zydecopa, Romnia stems. Or similar, like yeah, maybe elderberry too, like anything that's large and hollow stems. Any other idea? Are we formally ending this now, or should we go through questions? I know that we've gone kind of long.
Do we have more questions?
Any questions?
As long as you're willing.
We're done.
An announcement. Sorry.
Yes. Everyone has one of these. Now, I was now telling people how to get here. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a little teeny tiny microscopic bee on dandelion.
There.
Yeah.
Like the non-native dandelion that's like in your front yard.
Yeah, just like here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It could probably be a variety of things. Yeah, there's a lot of really tiny little bees. Maybe Lasioglossum is a really common small little bee. Is it just all black or metallic or?
Yes. Dandelions, shaded.
Oh yeah,
No, shaded bed.
there is a native dandelion. Yeah, it's endangered. It's in yeah.
Right.
Hmm. Well, it's not horribly invasive. It's kind of more of a weed than anything.
I want to know what the native one is.
It's
Rare.
Taraxacum californicum. It's yeah,
Rest.
Taraxacum.
Okay, so large, not native.
It's yeah, it's nearly it's very, very endangered. It only exists in certain meadows in the San Bernardino Mountains. Yeah.
So people are asking about if they can contact you. Do you have a contact email that you prefer to use or just not?
I took my contact off of here, but I should have. Is that online? Oh yeah,
Yes,
obviously.
you're asking online. You don't have to do it.
Yeah, feel free to contact me. You can find me on iNaturalist. It's just Aaron Echols, and you can send me a message there, or you can. My email is my first initial last name 22@gmail.com. So AEC. Oh yeah, we can put it in the chat. Maybe I can open up the chat.
We can do that for you.
Okay, so
Echols22@gmail.com.
It's your Instagram.
Or if you're in the IERCD service area, you can do
22@gmail.
yeah.
Oh, you did. Oh,
Is it a dot your last name or just a?
just a actual. No,
Right. It's probably not showing up.
yeah,
Yeah, just yeah,
no dot in there.
right there. Oh, I guess I'm sending a message to myself. I don't know what's going on.
Wonder. Ask for some questions.
I do all the time. Yeah.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, I think. Oh, was there another question? Is that it? Oh yeah, don't forget. Yeah, I have milkweed seeds. So if you want milkweed seeds, we'll do that.
It's all white to plant also.
And how, or
Yeah, actually we have other packets that has instructions on there, but I didn't want to
yeah.
take them without asking first from our nursery person.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman.
So are we closing it online officially then? All right.
And the cigarettes.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for those online attending. And yeah, feel free to contact me at either of those contacts.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you very much.